I'm Jack Kennedy, and we're here to bring you the latest in MMA.
Hey everybody, my name's Hunter Boss, and what the boss says goes.
What is up everyone, my name is Keelan McNamara, and you already know what time it is.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the MMA Island podcast. I am Jack Kennedy alongside Keelan McNamara and Hunter Boss. Well, guys, it's that time of year again. Whenever this releases, it will be New Year's Eve. Happy New Year, everybody. 2022 around the corner. MMA Island, us as a company, just had our award ceremony, but now it's time for us, the MMA Island podcast, to break down the past year and give our awards out for all the stuff. So with that, let's get into the MMA Island podcast year in review 2022. Here we go. KO of the year. Hunter, what is the best knockout?
Oh my god, the best knockout. Now, I'm surprised that this didn't win it on the actual MMA Island post itself, because I voted for this one, and this was honestly the coolest knockout I've seen in a long time.
Yeah.
And this is Yuri Prochazka's spinning back elbow to Dominic Reyes. I mean, maybe I took it from you guys, maybe I didn't, but if this isn't in your top 3 best knockouts of this year, I don't know what is, because Yuri Prochazka and Dominic Reyes went to an absolute war for this fight, and no one would have expected a spinning elbow. I mean, Yuri Prochazka didn't even expect a spinning elbow knockout, and there were so many times within that fight in which you thought the fight would be finished there, and then they survived, and then just out of nowhere, it felt like it's just like that. He spun around, spinning elbow. I mean, he elbowed him a little bit earlier before, but it wasn't really a spinning elbow, so. Just a really cool knockout himself, and you guys haven't seen it yet. I suggest you guys go watch it, because that is my KO of the year.
Dude, that is such a great pick. And, I do agree with you. If that's not even in your top 3, I think you're one of the judges from our many controversial decisions this year, because I have to ask what the hell you're doing. So, yeah, it was a great pick, but it wasn't my pick. My pick was the guy who has got me in so many fights over this past year at bantamweight. I still think he's one of the best bantamweights in the world. It's Corey freaking Sandhagen.
No way.
And
big surprise.
It's a shock. I know it's not Petr Yan for once. Who can believe it? No, I mean, look, that Yuri Prochazka elbow was special, but the Corey Sandhagen knee was one of a kind. It was so good from every aspect of fighting. The more you look at it, the better it becomes. And that tells you have a bloody good knockout in your hands. In fact, if you go back and you look at the video of the actual knockout, Sandhagen's knee makes a perfect right angle when it hits Frankie Edgar's face. When have you ever seen that? From a standing vertical leap. That is just special. The guy jumped as high as Frankie Edgar is tall, hit him with a perfect 90-degree knee knockout. And to me, it's just the best knockout of this year. It's the highlight reel knockout of 2021. And once again, for the umpteenth time, and I'm sure not the last time, I'm here picking Corey Sandhagen. And for me, he managed to get the best knockout of 2021.
I really like that, and of course we're going to go Corey Sandhagen. I think a lot of us predicted that. Look, my KO of the year, and for these, usually I try and mix it up and change it just so we all 3 have a different one, but I'm going to, because I think I want to give the best of the best in my opinion. So I'm going to go Yuri Prochazka as well as my KO of the year. By the way, the Kamaru Usman Jorge Masvidal one, it's a phenomenal KO, but I really think that the race is between the 2 that we've mentioned here. Yuri Prochazka and the Corey Sandhagen, or if you wanted to do the spinning wheel kick KO from, I'm missing the guy's name, but I can't
remember his name either. I could see it happening, but it's just...
You guys, know what we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
So I think those are the 2 that you're debating here. And whenever you go into it, these are 2 spectacular knockouts. And that's what knockout of the year is. It's going to be something that's ridiculous. Like last year's Joaquin Buckley caught the kick to the spinning thing. It's something ridiculous, right? A spinning elbow versus Dominic Reyes, I think just by a .001, I value it just a little bit more than the Corey Sandhagen and Frankie Edgar KO, because the way I look at it, they're both spectacular, phenomenal KOs. But when you look at the fight themselves, Frankie Edgar, in my opinion, versus Corey Sandhagen should have won that fight. Corey Sandhagen is a whole head taller than Frankie Edgar. So landing that flying knee, not that it's not spectacular, it absolutely is spectacular. That's why we're debating it, and I would not be upset with you picking that pick at all. But it makes a lot more sense that a super tall guy like Corey Sandhagen landed on a shorter guy like Frankie Edgar, a guy who's also aged, and facing a guy like Corey Sandhagen who is tearing through everybody. Whereas Yuri Prochazka versus Dominic Reyes, yes, Dominic Reyes is off a loss, but he's off a loss to Jan Blachowicz fighting for the championship fight. And before that, he lost to John Jones, which a lot of fight where people thought he won that fight. So the guy is there. He's arguably coming into his prime. He's a phenomenal light heavyweight. Yuri Prochazka has had one fight in the UFC, a crazy knockout over Volkan Ozdemir, but really, we don't know who Yuri Prochazka is. They went out there and just a slugfest for however, 10 minutes it lasted, 11 minutes it lasted, and then that spinning elbow came out of nowhere and knocked him out. That's just what gives me the tiniest edge for Yuri Prochazka's elbow. You guys both listed it perfectly, and honestly, I've been going back and forth on this as well. That's the one small thing that puts Yuri Prochazka's spinning elbow over the flying knee, but you cannot go wrong here. Two phenomenal knockouts, and I love the pick from Keelan, of course, Corey Sandhagen, but my pick is Yuri Prochazka, spinning elbow. I agree with Hunter. So moving on now to submission of the year. Hunter, who got the best submission?
All right, I'm going to pick submission of the year on why Jorge Masvidal's and Kamaru Usman's knockout is not the best knockout.
Okay.
But I'm just doing the devil's advocate here, almost. Okay. My submission of the year is Glover Teixeira over Jan Blachowicz. Now, I understand that it wasn't the most impressive submission, and it wasn't like a flying armbar like Demetrius Johnson or anything like that. But you have to understand the implications behind the submission here.
Yes.
This is because Glover Teixeira is 42 years old. He's been in the UFC for over 9 years, and this man has fought for the belt before against the former champion John Jones. And he came close to it, but didn't really grasp it. And everyone kind of ruled Glover Teixeira out after that. They're like, you know what? He couldn't beat John Jones. He's not going to beat many other people. He goes out there, and he starts winning, and he starts winning, and he starts winning, and people are starting to realize, man, Glover's not just a gatekeeper anymore. This guy could be an actual contender. Goes and fights Jan Blachowicz and just stuns the world. He shows everyone that this is possible, that anything is possible, even when you're at 42 years old in a sport in which you try to flying knee knock out someone, or try to spinning elbow knock out someone, or try to submit someone and try to beat your opponent any way possible. And a 42-year-old who, with dedication, can do it. So that's why I had to pick Glover Teixeira. I couldn't not pick Glover Teixeira for any of these. So this is the one I wanted to highlight, just to highlight Glover Teixeira.
I love that so much. I really, really do. And if we had an award for Feel Good MMA Story of the Year, I think there's a mighty strong argument we would be unanimous, and that would be the winner. So, Hunter, I can't tell you how much I love that pick, because I really do. And I'm actually torn on my pick here, because if we're talking about the best submission in terms of the best implications from that submission, my pick is probably the same. But if we're talking in terms of impressiveness and technical execution, I actually have a very obscure pick that I don't think anybody else is going to think of. It's, excuse me for a moment. No, it's not you, Hunter, even though I wish it was. It's actually Anthony Hernandez against Rodolfo Vieira from earlier in the year.
I love it. I love it. Yes.
I love it. And it was that anaconda choke from Hernandez. You know, the reason this submission is so impressive is not only that it was an anaconda, which is a pretty rare submission technique. It's kind of like a worse guillotine, if we're being totally honest. But the fact that so many people expected Rodolfo Vieira to just walk over Anthony Hernandez, to me, that's what makes this submission so impressive. Because Vieira got beat up for that first round, completely got his gas tank drained. Then I think Hernandez knocked him down, and he managed to trap him in one of the nastiest anaconda chokes that I have ever seen. And the fact that not only did Hernandez beat Vieira, but to beat him at the submission game, I was just beyond impressed with that performance. And the technical mastery of that submission was a sight to behold in its own right. So if like I said, if we're going in terms of implications and the feel good factor, I have no problem with Glover Teixeira whatsoever. In fact, I would go for it myself. But if I'm going based on the actual submission itself and the mastery of the technique, for me, Anthony Hernandez.
I love that so much, and I forgot about that fight. I was about to say that another reason that's up there is because that's up there for upset of the year. I forgot about Juliana Pena, Amanda Nunes. That's why we don't even have that segment in here, because that's undoubtedly going to be the upset of the year, upset of the past 3-4
Sean
years.
O'Malley beating Raulian Paiva, anyone?
No, Chris Moutinho was the craziest upset I've ever seen. No, I love both of those, and I'm going to go a different way, and you guys, I probably might not put this up as the submission of the year, but I think you'll kind of enjoy the shout. I'm gonna go Vicente Luque over Michael Chiesa as submission of the year. And this is a bit for implications, but also the submission itself, because the submission itself was beautiful. The way he locked up that Darce and was able to control Michael Chiesa from flipping him and made him tap. But for me also before that submission, he set it up because Michael Chiesa was so confident in his own skills, his own submission ability. He kind of just left his arms out there because he didn't expect Vicente Luque to go for it. Luque, a black belt in his own right, was like, hey, why not? Let's check it out. And he got the Darce. It was, oh my goodness, it was so amazing. And Luque, I almost feel bad for him a little bit because that fight happened, but with all the other chaos that's been going on in the welterweight division, he got that win. He's up there. He deserves like a top 3 shot, but he's kind of overshadowed and people are starting to forget about him. So hopefully Luque gets the fight he deserves because that finish was unbelievable. As far as the implication about it, and this relates just to the submission as well, Michael Chiesa is known for a guy that was just ragdolling people with his grappling. He's one of the best grapplers in MMA today. I really think so, especially in that welterweight division. He just got too overconfident in his skills and didn't play any defense down there at all. And you're facing a guy, Vicente Luque, who is thriving and took that opportunity, because if you go up to that moment in that fight too, Chiesa was winning on the ground comfortably. Vicente Luque just escaped a couple submissions himself and then got the finish, but Chiesa was being confident and controlling. And then we saw in Chiesa's last fight that he lost as well. But look, that Vicente Luque win at that time was unreal and propelled him up. And to submit Michael Chiesa, no one saw that coming. So that is my submission of the year, Vicente Luque. Congratulations to you. All right, guys. Let's move on to the upcoming fighter of the year, 2021. Hunter, what do you think?
All right, boys, hear me out, okay?
All right.
I need you to come with me on this adventure that I'm about to give you.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
Paddy the Baddy Pimblett.
Oh,
is the upcoming fighter of 2021, and he's going to be fantastic in 2022. There's many reasons for this. All right. He is a god when it comes to on the mic. You give him a live mic and he knows how to sell a fight like no other. He's going to go out there and he's going to call out everyone and he's going to just give a show to the fans. Also, what you may have seen in that fight is that he got hurt pretty early on and he got caught with a really good shot, which might tell you guys that, hey, that means he can be finished. But what it tells me, all champions that are current champions right now get hurt in their fights. That's just what happens. But it's the ability to come back and then finish your opponent when you're in that hurt state. I think Paddy Pimblett does that very well. I mean, we saw it in this fight. We saw him kind of, as soon as he got hurt, he kind of calmed himself down, got a little bit collected, and then went out there and delivered a stunning blow. I mean, this guy right here, even when he's hurt, he can come back. I mean, we've seen that with Charles Oliveira. When he's hurt, he can come back. We've seen that Kamaru Usman against Gilbert Burns. I mean, he got hurt in that fight. He came back. He got calm and composure, and then he went out to finish him. I mean, we see these in the greatest of fighters. So Paddy Pimblett showing it in his first UFC fight, it gives me a little bit of hope. So I'm going to say Paddy Pimblett is the upcoming fighter of the year.
It's a great shout, but it's not my shout. And I like the pick a lot. And I do think Paddy Pimblett is going to have a big 2022. but I think there's one fighter who's going to have a bigger 2022. And that man goes by the name of Alex Pereira in that middleweight division. The man they call the Nightmare of, the Nigerian killer himself, Israel Adesanya. I think Alex Pereira is going to have a huge 2022. I really do. You know, I mean, Pereira could have been nominated for Knockout of the Year as well in his opening fight against Mikiadlis not that long ago. That flying knee as well was absolutely beautiful that he landed. And the reason why I think Alex Pereira should be fighter of this year is that Alex Pereira's only had one full round, and yet he's already a terrifying prospect to the current crop of middleweight fighters that's in the division right now. If we look at his stand-up, there are very few middleweights who can or would want to stand with Alex Pereira. The guy's kickboxing record is legendary. His Muay Thai is second to none. His standard boxing in his own right is elite. Now, I do confess there are detractors who will say, but he got put on his back really easily. His wrestling isn't there. Wrestling can be worked on and wrestling can be developed if you are willing to. And Alex Pereira has shown how willing he is to work and develop his game the longer it goes on. But that standing ability and that knockout power, I think Alex Pereira is going to make a real tear through middleweight in 2022. Does he get to the title picture by the end? Maybe not, because he's maybe just a bit too far out right now. But I'm telling you, by the end of 2022, one of the names you are going to be talking about in that middleweight title picture is Alex Pereira.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And this is actually fascinating because it's similar to the last podcast when we mentioned these similar names coming around. So for this one, you guys might be a little upset at this, but I'm gonna go Khamzat Chimaev. I'm upset.
You're right.
I don't think he won it last year because of Kevin Holland, and he didn't. Kevin Holland, I think, stole the show last year because he fought 5 times and won, right? So I'm gonna give it to him this year. He just beat a guy who was ranked. He's ranked now. The dude is a phenomenal a fighter, and he just took him up, put him down, talked to Daniel White, got the submission, and moved on up into the rankings. We're talking about a title shot for Khamzat Chimaev. It's insane. The hype behind this guy, on the mic, we talked about Paddy Pimblett. On the mic, Khamzat Chimaev is just, I will smash everybody. He will do whatever he needs to do. He's only taken 4 punches. He's going up. Khamzat Chimaev is probably my upcoming fight of the year. You could argue for him last year, but he didn't win it last year. Kevin Holland won it last year. He's going to win it this year because this guy is going to take over the welterweight division.
Yeah, but he wasn't upcoming. He was already up.
He wasn't ranked
at the start of this year.
He wasn't ranked though.
Okay, he wasn't ranked.
Fight Leon Edwards.
He was scheduled to fight Leon Edwards. That fight never happened though.
Yeah, all right. You know what?
I don't know.
This is like the Aljamain Sterling Peter Yan thing. I'll give it to you for a technicality here. Technicality.
All right.
Let's not go back there.
All right.
That was bad enough the first time.
That's comeback of the year right there. It's Aljamain.
Oh, right. That's for sure. Yeah.
For God's sake.
Losing even in that 4th round. I mean, that's amazing.
Imagine explaining to someone who doesn't know MMA about Khamzat Chimaev. He's only taken 4 punches. This is insane.
Yeah, that man's he's gonna go crazy in 2022.
Yeah.
He's gonna go mad, yeah. But you know what? I think those are all 3 really good picks. I think Chimaev technically is a little bit more wishy-washy than our picks.
We're counting them.
But you know, this is kind of like Chimaev's 2.0 career resurgence, I guess. So what the hell? It's the end of the year. We may as well allow it. We're not going to have any space to debate it anyway.
That's right. Let's go.
You did that on purpose.
That's right. That's me right there. I'm Khamzat.
Stay with your chest.
All right. So let's move on now to the fight. Or wait, hold up. Yeah, fight of the year. Let's do that. All right. Before we get into fighter of the year and which fight needs to happen, let's go fight of the year. And this one, I would be shocked if we have anything different. But Hunter, get us started. Fight of the year for 2021.
Usman is the fighter of the year. And I have to say, this is because he had 3 different title defenses. He's the pound-for-pound champion right now. Out of those 3 title defenses, he's finished 2 of them. And he had a fantastic war with Colby Covington in his last fight. And I mean, it was a close fight, don't get me wrong, but Usman prevailed, and like he usually does. And I think Usman is just unstoppable right now. I think the only person who can stop him might be Jack's upcoming fighter of the year of Khamzat Chimaev, because this man doesn't get punched, and he's just so dominant when he steps in the cage. It's scary to watch him because he just runs over to his opponent. He'll either one punch knockout you like he did to Gerald Mearshart, or he'll just pick you up and throw you on the ground and then finish you there. It's crazy. But other than that, Kamaru Usman is definitely the fighter of the year for me. I mean, he finished a guy. He knocked out Jorge Masvidal, a guy who's never been knocked out before, and I think that's important to say. I mean, I don't think that's the knockout of the year, just because. I mean, it looked cool. Don't get me wrong, and it was a fantastic knockout, but it was just it was a right it was a right cross. Like, if we're being honest here, it was a right cross. Like, it was cool to look at. And Jorge Masvidal had a bunch of water on him, so you got all those cool pictures and cool shots of him getting knocked out like he was in a movie or something like that. But that's just it. He wasn't in a movie. It looked cool, but Yuri Prochazka's knockout was better. But I feel like I keep like debating myself on whether or not Usman's the fighter of the year. Usman is the fighter of the year. I'm not saying anything else because I'll be digging myself even deeper into that hole of regret. Usman, fighter of the year. Boom.
Hunter, I don't think you're too sure on who your pick is, and I think you're right to have doubt because it's not Kamaru Usman.
Oh my gosh.
It's Charles Oliveira, and I'm going to tell
Okay.
you why. Nope, I'm going to tell you why it's Charles Oliveira.
Real quick. Are we sure it's not Sean O'Malley? Are we positive it's not Sean O'Malley?
We're not sure about that.
Okay,
We're not.
He's the king of the unranked. I'll give him
No,
that
he's
much.
right now though. He's
He's still the king of them.
okay. All right, fair enough.
Hey, it's better being the king of something than the peasant of nothing, I guess.
Oh my gosh.
My fighter of the year is Charles Oliveira, and there's one huge glaring reason why he is over Kamaru Usman. Anybody want to take a guess what it is before I tell you?
Oh, he's number 4 pound for pound.
No.
Oh, I don't know.
You got anything, Jack?
He almost got knocked out twice in both of his fights.
Good, but not quite. No, I'll tell you exactly why. At the beginning of the year, none of us were in any doubt that Kamaru Usman would be the champion by the end of it. Nobody predicted Charles Oliveira would be the lightweight champion by the end of this year, and he's defied everybody's odds to become the champion. The fight against Michael Chandler, he was written off almost exclusively. To be fair, most of us didn't write him off. In fact, I don't think any of us fully wrote him off. But pretty much the entire mainstream MMA media wrote Charles Oliveira off against Chandler, and he went and he knocked him out. You know, the biggest hype train in probably the last 6 months in the UFC of Michael Chandler, he went and he derailed it single-handedly. And then against Dustin Poirier, no one really gave him a hope in hell of winning. He went out and did that as well, and he defied the odds too to achieve the dream of becoming the undisputed lightweight champion. Now, I took nothing away from Kamaru Usman's efforts. You know, he beat Colby Covington, he beat Jorge Masvidal, and he deserves a lot of credit for that. The problem is that Usman's biggest and nearest rival, he'd already beaten once, and then he went and he beat him again. So you could argue he had the edge over him anyway, psychologically at least. Charles Oliveira didn't have an edge over anyone. He went out, fought the two of the probably 3 best lightweights on the planet, and he finished both of them. So for my money, Kamaru Usman's mightily impressive and he deserves all his credit. But for fighter of the year, the one who stood out and defied all expectations, it's Charles the Bronx Oliveira.
Look, I love that show. I really do, because I love Charles Oliveira. I know we all do on this podcast. However, the one point I disagree with is that a lot of people didn't expect him to be champion coming into the year. Because I remember on the last year in review thing, back when Mace Martinez and I were doing it, we both called Charles Oliveira to be champion because he was following that Tony Ferguson ragdolling. And so I think a lot of people were expecting to be champion. However, the rest of your points are absolutely sound. And I think if there was a second place, I think it's locked up for Charles Oliveira. I really do. And also the competition he beat in Michael Chandler and Dustin Poirier. And I know I was joking earlier, but the fact that he did almost get finished in both those fights and came back also goes for him for fight of the year. I really think so, because it shows heart. So I think he's phenomenal. And I think any other year, if he was competing against anyone else, he probably is fight of the year. However, look, it's got to be fighter of the year. It's got to be Kamaru Usman. I know Hunter was kind of going back and forth and like mixing random stuff in, but
I'm just trying to be fair to like
You're trying to-
everyone, and by
I got
doing
you.
that, it disproved my point.
I got you. It's all good. It's all good. But yes, it is absolutely Kamaru Usman. The biggest thing is 3 fights, 3 title defenses at welterweight, and he looks like he's getting better in every single one. He looks complete. The most damage he took was in that Colby Covington fight, and I really don't think he looked in danger at any point in that fight. He looked comfortable. Look, it was a close fight, but he overall won it. The other fight was the knockout over Jorge Masvidal, which I know we all don't agree it is knockout of the year, but man, that was a sweet knockout. I mean, that was crisp.
Yeah.
And also why it's impressive is Jorge Masvidal has never been knocked out. Like no one's ever done it. So the fact that Kamaru Usman's the first one to do it and in that championship moment. And did he beat Burns? Was Burns the other one at the beginning of the year?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
February.
Burns had him in trouble at the beginning, but he came back in that fight and he looked phenomenal and out just basically jabbed him to death. And Burns, honestly, going into that fight, if out of all the fights, I think a lot of people are going back and forth on Burns to beat Kamaru Usman because of how good he looked. And Usman shut him down. I really think just overall 3 title defenses, 3 dominant performances, a guy who looks complete in every asset of the game and is getting better in every single fight. For me, Kamaru, the Nigerian Nightmare, Usman is fighter of the year for 2021. However, I love Charles Oliveira as well. It's a great pick. And I'm honestly glad you said it because it's good to shout him out. But yeah. All right, guys. So now the last little thing we're going to be talking about is, or I guess second to last, fight of the year. Hunter, what do you think?
All right. Mine's going to be a little controversial because it's not the obvious pick.
No. Oh, my goodness.
It's not the obvious pick, but it was definitely
never.
one of the best fights of the year.
Fair
This was my favorite fight of the year. That's why I'm saying it. It's my favorite fight of the year. It's Yuri Prochazka versus Dominic Reyes.
That's fair.
I think that's a fair pick, right? I'm not crazy in saying that.
All right.
Before the obvious pick, which I will not mention for you guys,
You can. Everybody
this fight was fight of the year by far. There wasn't even a close fight before your guys' fight that you will mention. It has had surfaced.
Yeah.
This fight was back and forth craziness for 3 rounds in which both fighters were hurt heavily. I think Yuri Prochazka went out at one point when he got up kicked by Dominic Reyes, and he still came back and he had that spinning knockout elbow. It was just it's one of the greatest fights you'll just see in the octagon. It goes on to show you that anything can happen in that octagon. You can get spinning elbowed, you can get taken down, you can get up kick knocked out, you can just get a bloody back and forth brawl in which both fighters really come out, neither of them being a loser, but both of them really showing that they're really gladiators. They are the best of the best, and they're doing it to entertain us. These are fighters. They step in a cage for a living, and anything can happen. So that's why I'm going with Dominic Reyes versus Yuri Prochazka.
It's kind of appropriate that this is the end of year review because it is time to make some New Year's resolutions. And for the podcast, mine is to stop stealing Jack's obvious picks. I do apologize, but sometimes it's unavoidable.
Yeah.
And so I'm going for another controversial pick because I'm not going to take the obvious pick. I'm going to let Jack have that if he so wishes.
Okay.
Hunter's made a really, really good case for Yuri Prochazka throughout this entire episode, actually. But there's one fight that was better than it. And you're forgetting about 2 men called Merab Dvalishvili and Marlon Moraes.
Oh, man.
That was one of the best bantamweight fights I have seen ever. And we have seen some unbelievable fights in that division. Merab Dvalishvili is someone who will be in the title picture at the end of next year at bantamweight, if he's not already within striking distance right now. And he went out and he nearly got finished about 3 or 4 different times by Marlon Moraes in that opening round. Absolute violence, just chasing each other around the octagon, getting hit, getting dropped, and getting back up again. Second round, does Dvalishvili slow down? No, he finds his second wind. He gets up and he knocks out Marlon Moraes. It was kind of like the Prochazka Reyes fight, but in reverse. because the favorite was the one who was getting hurt really badly.
Yeah.
And then he came back and knocked out the underdog really in this fight that I'm talking about. And so, in fact, I would actually argue that it was one of the top 3 fights of bantamweight this year, the Dvalishvili and Moraes fight. And the fact that it's so slept on and hasn't been mentioned by anybody is criminal, because it at least deserved a mention. If not, if you're not going to award a fight of the year, that's fine. But to not even mention it or have it on the podium, I think is just straight up wrong. So for me, in a means of going about this differently, I'm going to give my award to Merab Dvalishvili and Marlon Moraes.
I love it. And you know what? Before I even mention the one that everyone's going to say, which I didn't say it, unlike whenever I said Rakic before. Do you guys remember that? Before I said Rakic before, it was actually, I held it back, all right? Although everybody knows what it is. I'm going to go ahead and one that I'm surprised. So I kind of expected Hunter to say his, but I was not expecting Merab Dvalishvili versus Marlon Moraes from Keelan. I love it. But this is a fight that, Hunter, you were actually there to see. Alexander Volkanovski versus Brian Ortega, I think, also deserves a shout for fight of the year.
It was fantastic.
One of the best featherweight title fights ever.
Hunter came back a changed man.
I saw both the Ortega one and the Shivali one because they're on the same card.
Oh, totally. Yeah, that's insane. Yeah, and I mean, that fight was incredible. That third round, obviously, just one of the best championship rounds you will ever see. I think it deserves a big shout out, so that's why I'm doing it. But the main one, and this is getting all the media attention as it deserves, and I think is the clear favorite, Michael Chandler, Justin Gaethje. No surprise here. I mean, first off, going into it, we knew what this fight was going to be. We knew why you had to open up. You had to watch this fight because both these guys are cut from the same cloth. The post-fight interview from Justin Gaethje is just perfect, where he said, "We're both gladiators. We were born in the wrong time. We should be fighting the Coliseum." No quitting either guy. Chandler, he looked like a zombie at the end of it, but he was going for it with his hands down, and Gaethje was just almost knocked out in the first round like every Justin Gaethje fight, but came back and dropped him with that beautiful uppercut. The fight is non-stop chaos, and then opened up a card that lit the entire arena on fire. Everybody was losing their minds, as they should. I get goosebumps every time they enter into the second round after the first, because everybody's losing their mind and they're standing there like, let's go. That is what the UFC, that is what MMA is about. Michael Chandler, Justin Gaethje. Really no surprise. We knew it would be up for fight of the year whenever the fight got announced, but it not only met the expectations, it exceeded the expectations. And that is why it is the 2021 fight of the year. However, there's been so many good fights in 2021. So I'm so glad we mentioned all of them, but yeah, absolutely. Well, last segment of the year in review for MMA Island podcast. What fight needs to happen in this new year, 2022? Hunter, what do you think?
Now, I'm going to pick 2 fighters that are coming off of losses here. But they're definitely still famous enough.
Okay.
I'm going to go with Nate Diaz versus Conor McGregor 3.
Wow.
This needs to happen in 2022. I think we can both agree that neither of these fighters are going to become champion in the rest of their careers, which is sad to hear. It's sad to hear, but it's the truth. Yeah. I don't think Conor McGregor is better than any of the top 4 lightweights or welterweights or even featherweights for that matter. Maybe featherweights. He's at the top 3 featherweights. But I don't think he can make the cut again.
Make the weight.
Nate Diaz, he's good. Don't get me wrong. And he has the skills. He's just too arrogant when he comes in the octagon sometimes, which I don't think will get him to the title shot at welterweight. And I don't think he's going to cut down to lightweight again. Yeah. So this fight needs to happen at welterweight for many reasons. It's the rubber match. You have to have the third fight here. They're at 1-1 here. Both the fighters are kind of declining, but they're not done yet. They're both really good stuff. So I think it's a great time to do the third fight, to finally give the fans what they want, what they needed since the last time they fought. So give it to them. They're both active. They're both still fighting. Nate Diaz, I think, just re-signed his contract. Give this fight a go, Dana. Come on.
Yeah, that is such a great pick. And, even though, again, I have my own feelings about Conor McGregor personally, that would probably be the biggest selling fight I would think of all time. The heat from the first 2 fights is nothing compared to what the third would be. And I just think that is perfect, Hunter. So props to you for that shout. My pick My pick is at lightweight. And I think in this pick, you have an unstoppable, violent force, a tornado, if you will, against an immovable object. And it's not actually a title fight. So that, I mean, if that adds any more intrigue, by all means, let it be so. It's Justin Gaethje against Islam Makhachev.
Ooh.
And this is a fight that I can't even tell you how much I want to see because in Islam we've pretty much got the prototype of Habib Nurmagomedov, a fighter built in that way, the guy with the DNA of Habib, that non-stop, relentless, exhausting, sweltering wrestling. And in Justin Gaethje, you've got probably the most violent fighter in the UFC in terms of a guy who will literally go out and just fight you anywhere. Maybe Sean Strickland, but it's probably Justin Gaethje. And that fight would be insanity because, I think Islam Makhachev's wrestling is so good that he will get Gaethje down, but Gaethje is like a caged animal, and I don't know if he can keep him down. And if Gaethje gets up on his feet, can you imagine the roar from the crowd if he can get back up? And he hits him with one of those uppercuts and he has Makhachev hurt. I think this would be the biggest fight in the lightweight division in 2022 if it can happen. Obviously, Islam has Beneil Dariush in, I think, February, if I'm not wrong. It could be March, but I think it's February. And assuming he gets past Dariush, that's the fight that needs to happen. I mean, look, Gaethje can fight for the title by all means next. I certainly wouldn't begrudge him it. But if you want the ultimate number one contender showdown, the guy who's truly next in line, Gaethje, Makhachev, biggest lightweight fight of 2022.
I really like that. I didn't expect it. Makhachev scares me. I think he's so good in that. But Gaethje, I mean, that would be a phenomenal fight. And it'd almost be like a minor revenge story for Justin Gaethje as well. You can't get that Habib loss back, but he could beat the Habib 2.0. I love it. So I'm gonna go a bit obscure as well. I'm gonna go in the heavyweight division, and I'm going to say Stipe Miocic versus Jon Jones is the fight.
I like it.
This is the one, honestly, out of anything that I've wanted to see at this heavyweight division. Just two guys, the GOAT heavyweight versus the GOAT light heavyweight. Two guys with some of the best fight IQ you will ever see. How does Jon Jones handle going up to heavyweight? We still don't know. Stipe, does he put more weight back on? How does he handle that loss to Francis Ngannou? I think it would be a 5-round technical battle, and I think it would be one of the best just technical fights we've seen ever in MMA between two of the best fighters we've ever seen. And it answers, you don't know how is Jon Jones going to look? Now it's not even the question of how he's going to look at heavyweight. How is he going to look after such a long layoff from fighting as well? There's so much that goes into it. For me, I think that is the fight that needs to happen in 2022. We need to see Jon Jones at heavyweight. And I think Stipe Miocic is the man to fight him, because if they won't give him the rematch against Francis Ngannou, which I don't know about you guys, I think he's earned.
More than.
I think they need to give him Jon Jones, and I think that is the fight to make. However, I love both of your picks. Another one I'd like to see, and this is regarding Makhachev as well, because I honestly think he is so terrifying in this division of another Habib potentially ruling it. I think I would like the current champion, Charles Oliveira versus Islam Makhachev.
Yes.
If Makhachev gets it to the ground, does he want it there? And how does he hold Oliveira there without getting submitted? That's something no one's been able to do before. And if he goes onto the feet, we see Oliveira is absolutely no slouch now. So I think, honestly, maybe more than Gaethje, if Oliveira beats Gaethje, that is a terrifying matchup for Islam Makhachev because it poses so many threats. It's like, and that's also, you know what that fight's also like? It's like the Habib Tony Ferguson 2.0 is that fight as well. So that's another fight I'm looking forward to. But let's just, any closing remarks for 2021 in MMA? What do you think?
I've got to say, this is my favorite year of MMA so far, and I'm happy to say that I'm a fan of MMA. I mean, to get me into MMA around like 2018, 2017, I wasn't expecting from this journey of watching these fights and watching these warriors enter the octagon and prove themselves to everyone else for our entertainment to be such a fascinating journey. And I have to say that if 2022 is half as good as 2021, I'll be a fan for life.
Yeah, 2021 has been such an awesome year for MMA. It really has. And not even just the UFC necessarily.
Yeah.
Bellator have done some big
Yeah.
things. One championship, the PFL. The game has been raised so much this year, and it's absolutely brilliant to see. It really has. And, even for the podcast, for what we do, for everybody watching, to have Robin Black on to do this every week, to be able to break down some of the biggest historical moments as they're happening, it doesn't get any better than that. And Hunter's absolutely perfect in what he's just said. To be an MMA fan now is such a brilliant thing because every fight's a banger of a fight, unless it's Francis Ngannou, Derek Lewis, but that was a blip. We'll talk about that another day. But the UFC right now and mixed martial arts as a whole is in such a good place. We've got amazing, amazing fighters. We have, for the most part, we have excellent ambassadors for the sport as each champion. We have some of the most ridiculously talented people that you can imagine. We have some of the greatest IQs, some of the greatest minds in combat sports currently competing in mixed martial arts. We have the storylines, the drama, the passion, the fuel, the action. We have everything. And the truth is 2021 has been brilliant as well. We've also suffered with the coronavirus, sadly. God willing, that ends much sooner rather than later. But the UFC's made it through it. UFC 261, we had fans back, which was incredible to see. I don't think I've ever heard a noise like that in my life. So this year's had its challenges, but it's very much been the best year for mixed martial arts. And again, like Hunter said, I'll briefly paraphrase from him. If 2022 is even a tenth as good as 2021's been, then we're in for another hell of a roller coaster ride.
Oh man, absolutely. I agree with you guys. I really think, and I have never actually been able to say this for any year because I think every year has been had its special moments and it's been a phenomenal year. But this year, 2021, I really think is the best year there's been to be an MMA fan. I really think so. I mean, it was a nonstop, like you said, roller coaster from start to finish. We started off the year with Max Holloway versus Calvin Kattar, and one of the
God did not set the tone.
That's exact. That just kicked off which ended off with the last pay-per-view of the year, which was Charles Oliveira, Dustin Poirier, and we just saw one of the, in my opinion, the biggest upset we've ever seen in Juliana Pena versus Amanda Nunes. From start to finish, absolute madness. And I don't know, there's been a lot of stacked cards, and it's not the most stacked card ever, but I don't know if I've ever enjoyed a pay-per-view as much as I enjoyed that last pay-per-view, UFC 269 at the end of the year, because it's like, oh, we're winding down the year, but every single fighter you expected to win lost that night, and it was unbelievable. It was incredible. The environment was amazing. Sorry, with the exception of Sean O'Malley. But we saw so many great moments. We had two Conor McGregor fights versus Dustin Poirier. Both of those broke the internet whenever they happen. I'm going through everything. That UFC 261 with fans back. That's another thing about this year. Every single fight card, whenever they had fans, was some of the best atmospheres I've ever seen as an MMA fan, because it's like we're back. We're back. And they're back in, and it's so loud. To UFC 261, one of my favorite moments, even more than the Kamaru Usman knockout, was that Rose Namajunas head kick over Zhang Weili that put her out cold in like the first minute of the fight, and everybody's losing their minds and everything like that because no one saw it coming. Oh, it's just been such a great year to be an MMA fan and to be able to do this with the podcast. Look, we're the best MMA Island podcast going, the MMA Island podcast. We're keeping it rolling. 2021 has been amazing. Here's to 2022. And thank you guys, everyone, so much for listening. As always, make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube. You can listen to us everywhere, literally everywhere, including iTunes and Spotify. Make sure to follow us on Instagram at MMA.island and check out our website, MMAisland.net. What a year it's been. Great podcast, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone. And here's to an unbelievable 2022.